Well, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depending on where you're dialing in from. Thanks for tuning in today. Welcome to the Paladin University. I'm Charles Owen. I will be your host today. We're going to go over some best practices for managing discontinued and replacement inventory items. Real quick here, it's probably going to be 15-20 minutes. I don't know if it's going to be any longer than that, so hang in there. It's not going to be that long. And we'll do some questions at the end. If you have any, just go ahead and type them into the screen and we'll go ahead and read those. So let's go ahead and get started. What you'll learn today is how to discover discontinued and replacement products in your system. So whether you know it or not, you may have some of these already in your system and you're wondering why every once in a while you come across something that has a description 2 that says discontinued. Well, I'll share that with you. The importance of EDI reporting to maintain a healthy inventory. We're going to go over the consequences for ignoring discontinued and replacement items. There are some consequences with that. And then the best process for cleaning up any neglected, discontinued, or replacement items in your system currently. We're also going to learn a little bit about the merge feature to streamline inventory item replacement management. So how to discover discontinued and replacement products in your system. So every once in a while, you know, products will be replaced with new products. And like you see the image of the Coke up here, the Classic was replaced by New Coke. And so most EDI vendors send down this information on a weekly or nightly basis through the EDI or electronic data interchange download. Typically, they fill in the description 2 field with the word discontinued or discontinued for, you know, in this case 1020085. It just shows that the current product or part number 16650 has been replaced. And on what they do is they will lock in through that EDI process. The order quantity will be locked in at 0, which means it will never show up on the suggested order report. It won't be ordered again by you unless you specifically order it. And sometimes the max quantity field is also locked in at 0. So what does this mean? Why did they do this? Well, one, if order quantity and or the max quantity fields are locked out at 0, these items will immediately be ignored by your suggested order report. Doesn't mean you can't order them, just means it's not going to show up on the suggested order report. If you lock in either one of those 2 fields, or if the EDI locks it in, it just won't show up on your suggested order. There are a couple other things that happen as well. With some of the suppliers, if you lock in 0 at max quantity, it can send a notice to the supplier that you no longer carry that product. And therefore, maybe that product will be off of the website if they have an e-commerce site. You might also automatically become unavailable. Those products are unavailable for sale on the web. The EDI process generally locks the order quantity, where the max quantity is usually that's reserved for the customer or store manager to lock that out at 0. And again, it's for one-time special order items. It's for items that are discontinued, for items that you no longer want to carry in your store. And I mentioned also that some suppliers will recognize the max quantity and locking out the nightly upload or following the nightly upload, and will mark these items not being carried by the store. Now, if you want to lock out certain items, there's another alternative, and using location code ranges is probably the best method for that. So what we recommend is that you just choose a location code that is different than everything else and set it to that. And when you're running your suggested orders, you put in the location codes, you know, the broad range of location codes, but you leave out the location code numbers that you want to keep out from your suggested order. All right, let's continue on. So the importance of EDI reporting for maintaining a healthy inventory. You know, it's interesting. I talked to several different stores and I asked them, you know, hey, when you run the report after EDI and you see this information or you see that information, they, oftentimes I get, what report? What is that? Yeah, it's important that you know what this report is. So after you run the electronic data interchange for your supplier, you want to know what happened, because you may need to make changes to affect your inventory, because it's certainly going to make changes to your inventory. So you may need to be aware of those changes, things like discontinued, things like replacements, prices that are being changed or attempted to be changed. So there's a whole number of different types of information you can get from this EDI reporting. So what it looks like is, if you go into the EDI reporting button, you'll see all of the invoices and maintenance files and promotions that have downloaded with that particular EDI run. And you can see those right here. It shows you things like the date it was processed, the invoice ID number, whether or not it was successful, the number of lines, and also the receiving costs. If you go into any one of those, it will generate a report. And that report will break out all the different categories of what happened during that EDI process. For example, it'll show you things like the invoice details, all the items on the in that particular invoice or maintenance file, and it will show you all the prices that have changed or costs, all of the descriptions that have changed, or discontinued items and replacement items. Those are all broken out in workbooks in these clearly labeled worksheets that you'll see when you generate this file to Excel. Further breakdown, it shows the workbooks have their own sheet, if you will, and you can see and you can identify all those items where prices changed, it was discontinued, it was replaced, maybe the unit of measure changed or something like that. All of that's visible right here in this Excel spreadsheet. Now, you may not get an Excel spreadsheet. You actually have an option to go to PDF. Well, the PDF is nice. It's long. It shows everything on one sheet or one PDF, which means you have to rummage through and look for the areas that you are interested in, versus the Excel spreadsheet that breaks them out in their own separate worksheet or tab. So how you set this up to run to Excel, if you're currently using PDF reporting today, on the File Setup Company tab under the EDI section, you'll see circled in red down below here says Revert to PDF Reporting. If that is checked, that means you are getting a PDF report versus Excel. If you have Excel on your terminal, we recommend that you uncheck Revert to PDF Reporting, so it will go directly to an Excel spreadsheet. Just makes it simpler and easier, and I recommend it to everybody. Other EDI settings that you have, there's a number of different choices you can make when downloading EDI files. You can choose to either update descriptions, update departments, update classes. You can determine the department type as well as your pricing stream, and how do you want it to react for retail prices. Do you want it to update prices, yes or no, or only if higher? So these are different options that you can set. So be aware of these. If you're constantly having to go in and change your retails because you have this set to no, then maybe you might want to consider changing it to yes, or maybe you change it to yes only if higher. So these are all choices that you have when your EDI runs. And one of those, as you can see here, is descriptions. Now, in the inventory, if you look at the different fields, oftentimes you'll see a little padlock next to a field. Now you can see this padlock if you click on the yellow and black striped padlock right when you go into an inventory item on the inventory screen at the very top. You'll see it next to the right of the part number. So you see part number 18736, to the right of that's a little padlock. If you click on that padlock, it'll give you a summary of all padlocks for that item. Many people don't know this existed or exists. I didn't know it existed for a long time, but it's a really handy way to see, okay, what do I have locked in the system? What's locked mean? Locked means you are taking possession of that field and not wanting EDI to affect it. So you want to keep control over that field. And that's true with every one of these, with the exception of description 2 field. Description 2 field, if a discontinued comes down, it will write over it. So that is there because it's a requirement from most of the suppliers that they need that. All right, moving on. So what are some of the consequences for ignoring discontinued and replacement items? You know, you don't want it to become a pain in the neck. It's interesting. I've dialed into a lot of stores and looked at their data and did a quick, 5-minute kind of assessment of their data. And one of the things I look for is how many discontinued or replaced items do they have still sitting in their system that no action has been taken on. And I'll find 9 times out of 10, there's a lot. It just means that people aren't running the reports, aren't paying attention to those discontinued and replacement items, and aren't doing the necessary effort to control those. If you do it on a regular basis, every time you get an EDI, it's going to be super simple, quick, and easy. But if you let it go for a couple of years without doing anything, you're probably going to find a lot of discontinued and replacement products in your system, which means you're going to have unnecessary products in your active inventory. You know, the EDI cost and price updates may be jeopardized because it's not going to the right barcode or part number, because you might have duplicate items, both the old item and the new replacement item. Phantom inventory items can happen as well. So if you've already got a product in there and it has a UPC code and EDI tries to bring it down, it's going to say, nope, I can't use that UPC code because it's already being used, and it can create a phantom or a new item without the UPC code. But yet it could still be the same item. Potentially wrong or discontinued items can scan at checkout, depending on the packaging that was scanned, which means you could be selling 2 different SKUs for the same item, which means your stock on hands could be compromised, which means your cost and your prices could be compromised, and it just could cause all kinds of worries. Now, if it's not a problem right now for you, if you're not noticing this, then it probably isn't a problem. But I would still get in and do the step of identifying if you have any discontinued or replacement items that haven't had action taken. So what you're going to do is, in order to do that, here's the best process for cleaning up those neglected and discontinued and replacement items. So real simple, generate the inventory count list for all the inventory items. Just go into reports, inventory, general, inventory count list. You'll see the mapping to the right there of how to get there. This is one of my favorite reports. It's a very easy report to give you the information that you need to do a very quick assessment. I do things like look for upside down margins on this report, look what's not selling, who are my top 10, top 50 sellers. All that information is going to be obtained from this file or report just by changing the sort order. Now, one of those is you want to sort for description 2. And you're going to look for all of the words, all of the items that have the word discontinued in them. When you do that, you're going to want to remove all the other fields or all the other items in that report that don't have discontinued in there. So you're going to whittle it down to a couple hundred or 1,000 or whatever it might be, or even dozens, depending on how good you are with keeping up with these. We're going to use this list of remaining items that have the word discontinued to somehow modify, delete, replace, or merge the discontinued and replacement items as appropriate. Here's how you're going to do that. So this is a copy, kind of a sample of that inventory count list. I've whittled it down to just the columns I want to see, which is part number, primary, alternate, description 1, description 2. I want to see year to date and 6 weeks, because that will help me identify whether or not these discontinued or replacement items are still moving when maybe they shouldn't be. right? Did you sell any in the last 6 weeks, in the last year to date? Well, if you did and it was discontinued a couple of years ago, that could be an issue. So I like to see all of these fields and headers on that inventory count list. All right, so how do we clean this up? What's one of the options? Well, one of the options is to merge. So when you have an item, let's go back a screen here or two, where it says discontinued for. So you're going to go into the new item. In this case, if we look at line 4 on this list, it says 1006681 is the new item. So you want to bring up the new item, and then what you're going to do is you're going to do a Control M, and I'll show you how to do merge momentarily. And then you'll search for the old part number and you'll pull them both together. You'll merge them. All right, so that is one way to do this. This takes the primary item and you call up the duplicate item and you fuse them together. It's going to pull in all of the stock on hand, combine it together. It's going to bring in any sales history of both items. Now you'll have them under one SKU. And all that's done automatically just by doing a quick merge. This shows you a little bit more about what happens to the primary and the duplicate inventory items. So the primary part number through a merge will add the duplicate inventory numbers and it pulls them into a single SKU, right? And you've got the part numbers. You're also retaining the primary part number from the duplicate item as well. And then if you go down further on the list here on the primary and duplicate merged, you see that the primary and duplicate alternate part numbers are in there. The stock on hand is combined. The purchase orders are also added. And the suppliers, any suppliers, if there's a different supplier, is also added. So that's what happens on a merge. So as I described here, it's real simple. We call the primary item number, do a Control M, using the keyword search, type in the keyword that best matches the description or part number. In this case, with that report, you're going to have the original part number, so you can just search by that part number. And what it's going to look like is something like this. So on the left-hand side, I did a keyword search of bulb LED A19. And it found it below. You can see if you go to the very top of that window, the part number 001-5651 right here is the new number. The was that 0213483 is the old one, and now I just select. All I need to do is select the old one because I already have the new one up here. And then I just hit the merge button, and it'll come up and say, "Hey, merge cannot be undone. You know, careful." Ensure that there's a current backup of the database before you continue. Make sure these are two of the same products. And if you're sure, hit yes, and you're good to go. And then they're together. Now, what's another option for cleaning up replacement items or duplicates? Well, if the items are out of date, they're no longer relevant, you don't have any stock on hand, it hasn't been sold in the last year. I mean, these are all good reasons just to delete it. You know, just delete the old item, and you do that just by bringing up the item, going to bottom of the screen there, you can see F2, delete item, and it comes up and it says you're about to permanently delete this item from your inventory. Click delete to confirm. Well, it's not actually going to permanently delete it. It just sets it to a status of deleted. However, what it does delete and not bring back is it pulls all your stock on hand and puts that into shrinkage. So please be cognizant of that. If you're deleting any items and you don't think it'll affect your inventory, it can. It can if there's stock on hand that exists in there, and it will change your inventory valuation because you're taking that product and now saying it no longer exists in the store, it was lifted, taken out, sold and not counted for, whatever. But just rest assured the history is never deleted and all these items can be reinstated at any time. So I hope this was helpful to you. We've gone through what to do with discontinued and or replacement items, how to affect that, what the importance is of reading your EDI reports. I would say that's, that was actually my last webinar, I believe, was on that very topic, because it is important that you know what's happening to your inventory as EDI makes changes to it. So hopefully this was something that was of use for you. I see that we had a lot of people join today. I really appreciate it. I don't see any questions at this time. If you have any, go ahead and type them in now as I finish up here. But do note that our next webinar is November 15th, and it's going to be on the best practices for reviewing your inventory. We talk a lot about doing cycle counts and how important that is, but really cycle counting it's just a byproduct of reviewing your inventory. It's extremely important that you review your inventory on a regular basis, because if you don't, who will? So stay tuned. That will be on November 15th. As always, oh, I see a question here. Let me go ahead and go there. Is there any way to print out a list of all items that have locked quantities from EDIs? Linda, yes. I'm glad you asked that question. Very simple to do. Under Paladin, if you go to the reports section, you go to inventory, general. On the right-hand side, you'll see a report called EDI mask report. EDI masked inventory items, I think is what it's called. And that will show you every single lock that you have in your system. It's a PDF report, and it just shows you all the different locks, and it shows you everything that's locked. So that's a very useful report. Another question here, can you show the report again, discontinued items to run if you have not run it before? You can see discontinued items at any time when you produce the inventory count list report. If it's an EDI and you want to know right then if something has changed, it's going to be right there in that recent EDI report. Now you can go back and recall other received POs or EDI rather, I should say, and you can go, because we retain those forever, and you can go back and look at those reports as well, whether it's been closed or whether it's still open. Okay, so that's that. Another question, items that are discontinued for another part number sometimes are not in your inventory. In this case, you need to hit F3 to change the old number to the new number. Did you mention this? No, that's a good point though, Diane. Yes, if that item is not brought down for whatever reason, then you can go ahead and do a number of different things. The first thing I would do is I would turn that existing part number for that discontinued item to, well, what I would do is I would take that and turn it to put an XXX in front of it, meaning it's been discontinued. Then I would go in and put that number without the XXX in the alternate part number. So you have that original part number as an alternate part number. Then at that time, you can now rename that XXX part number with the new part number, and that is how that you can change the part number. But again, it's important to preserve, in my opinion, the original part number of that discontinued item. In order to accomplish this, you must first release that number, and that's what we do by putting an XXX in front of it and saving the part number. We now can add that part number to alternate part number. If you tried to do it without putting the X's in front of it, it's going to say part number already exists, so it won't let you do it. So those are all great questions. I think we answered everything. As always, you can peruse our website and the different websites that we have, including our portal.paladinpos.com to see this webinar. We are recording it, and you can see other webinars as well. And we also have our store in Paladin and Retail Science. Retail Science is another website that we manage that shows several different articles that we potentially syndicate to different publications on how to better run your store. So I think that's it for the questions. So as always, it's been a pleasure. I hope it's been helpful for you. I hope everybody stays safe. God bless. And until next time, see you later.